Hello everyone, Mark Latham here, Dreams Eternal, OSAS, with my wife. Hope everyone's well. I have promised to keep everybody updated on the ongoing correspondence and discussions with local authorities and indeed now with Parliament regarding the child abuse policy of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. I'd like to start by reading something from jwsurvey.org, and you can read this. You can actually go on his site and read this, but I'm going to read it in part. For example, imagine for a moment that a brother murders another brother in the congregation. You alone see him do it, and you telephone an elder to tell him what happened. The elder would not question the validity of your accusation because you were the only witness, nor would he delay for a moment in calling the police, if you hadn't already done so. He certainly wouldn't tell you that the body of elders first needs to launch their own investigation to determine guilt before the authorities can be notified, if they are told at all. Murder is a crime, and therefore the police would be called straight away to intervene. Anything else would be reckless in the extreme and would leave the killer on the loose to kill yet more people. Just because life is not always lost when a child is molested, child abuse is still a crime and should be treated as such. Therefore, if the society wishes to insist on using the two-witness rule to determine whether the sin of a child molestation has been committed, this is their decision. However, just as with murder, child abuse is a crime. Therefore, the jurisdictional priority falls to the police for them to intervene and determine who the culprit is before anyone else is harmed. Unfortunately, the society completely underestimates the harm caused by child abuse. As an example, you need look no further than the previously quoted scripture in 1 Timothy chapter 5. Please read again when it says in verses 24 and 25, "The sins of some men are publicly manifest, leading directly to judgment. But as for other men, their sins also become manifest later. In the same way, also the fine works are publicly manifest, and those that are otherwise cannot be kept hid." 1 Timothy 5:24-25 of the New World Translation. What Paul is saying here is that when some people sin, it is publicly manifest because someone witnesses it. However, sometimes when people sin, it becomes manifest later. In other words, the sinful pattern continues until the person makes a mistake and gets caught in the act by two or more witnesses. By using this scripture, the society is effectively saying, don't worry if a paedophile abuses a child, but nobody witnesses it, because he will very likely abuse another child, and then we will catch him. You may find the way I have paraphrased this verse shocking, but this is effectively what is being said in the way this verse is applied in the letter. This highlights more than anything else the governing body's callous disregard for the serious and devastating effects of molestation on young children. They feel that abused children are expendable as evidence, and in the primary goal of bringing a sinner to repentance. The law, on the other hand, views things very differently and maintains that a molester should be brought to justice before he abuses another individual. In this way, through their stubborn refusal to let go of the two-witness rule, in judging cases of child abuse, the governing body demonstrates how oblivious and dispassionate they have grown regarding their responsibility to protect the children under their stewardship. The governing body should be letting the law judge cases of crime, and only then, after the law has intervened, busy themselves with deciding which of these crimes constitutes sin. Instead, they proudly bypass the law and allow themselves to judge cases over which God has appointed the superior authorities to adjudicate. Romans chapter 13 verses 1. The reason I mention that is just to give you a highlight really. I could talk for maybe an hour to 2 hours with all of the letters that we now have and the leaked memos about the child abuse policy. But we need to cut to the chase, and that was really just to give you a little bit of butter on the bread, to give you an idea of what we're primarily getting at here. What we're trying to say is the two-witness rule is obsolete with regards to child abuse. It doesn't work, and it's not protecting children. The two-witness rule is something that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society will not budge on, because they believe it is scriptural and they have to follow the biblical divine method of justice. The law under Romans 13 makes it very clear that they want to know when child abuse has occurred. They want to know all of the incidents, the individuals, when and where, and then they will decide on what punishments needed to be meted out and what counselling and professional services needed to be handed out to the victims. It's very clear that there is a polarisation between the policy of Jehovah's Witnesses and that of the law, in particular within the Western world. Last June of 2012, I wrote some letters to a number of different bodies, including the Home Secretary of our Parliament, Theresa May, my own MP, Chief Constables, police authorities, social services, and other MPs from our Parliament. I received one letter back, and I think I did a posting on this, and it was from the NSPCC. For those that don't know who the NSPCC is, it is the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. I gave them all of the information regarding letters, leaked letters, and of course parts of the Shepherd book outlining how elders should deal with paedophiles or cases of molestation. The letter back was very interesting, and in part it talks about churches being involved in what's known as the CCPAS in this country, in the United Kingdom, which is the Church's Child Protection Advisory Service. And it advises that if a sex offender joins a congregation, then that information needs to be shared on a need-to-know basis with the leadership in the church, who are responsible for ensuring that appropriate safeguards are in place. So yes, you can see that even here there are sensitivities about individuals that have a record of molestation and rape. What's interesting though is that it also says that all organisations that work with children and young people should have a child protection policy and procedures which clearly set out what someone should do if they believe a child is at risk of abuse or suspect that a child has been abused. We've seen the child protection policy. We have copies of it, of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Societies, and I can safely say to you that it falls well short of the mark in protecting children. Within most organisations, the procedure involves reporting the suspected abuse to a named individual within the organisation who has received, ready, child protection training, and who is then responsible for reporting the abuse to the authorities. So in each congregation we should have individuals that are trained, that have information about where they sit and how they work and how they can protect each individual within their congregation. Child protection training. This comes through the Child Protection Advisory Service. And then they, as an individual, are responsible for reporting the abuse to the authorities. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how churches in this country are supposed to work. Interesting. As a result of the lack of letters back, I continued to make inquiries, and I have been to see my MP. My MP and I scanned through the material that I had, and he too was very concerned about the information that I was showing him. As a result of that, he wrote to the Home Secretary, Theresa May, and lots of things started to happen from that point onwards. What I would say is that once you start getting involved in the machinery of all of this, you're looking at a very, very long time to get anything done. It doesn't happen overnight. In fact, already since last June, we've now gone, what, 6-7 months, and we're into a few letters. It takes months to get anywhere, but that doesn't mean that things aren't happening. They are. Things are being highlighted, things are being exposed. The next part is interesting. I had a phone call from my local police department last December, who had made it clear to me that they were arranging a meeting, shall we say, with a group of local elders to discuss the child protection policy of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. That took place in December. Now, we talked on the phone about the sort of questions and advice and what they could expect in responses from these group of elders. What I did make clear to the police at the time was that don't expect a lot. They will work very tightly with branch office. They will not say anything. They won't blink the wrong way without first of all making sure that everything is referred through head office, and of course head office then refers everything through its own legal department. So anyway, the elders were summoned from Gloucestershire. I'm not sure which elders it was, and it doesn't really matter, it's irrelevant. They are figureheads for the society at that time, and they were questioned by the police and by the Gloucestershire Safegaurding Children's Board. And I received a letter recently, and this is what it said. It's going through to my MP and copied in for me. Dear Mr Horwood, reference Mark Latham, thank you for your letter dated 19th of November regarding a concern raised by your constituent Mr Mark Latham about the child abuse procedures of Jehovah's Witnesses. I have been in contact with the Child Abuse Investigation Team of Gloucestershire Police, and I understand that Mr Latham is not making any current or historic allegations of abuse that require investigation. Therefore, we are hoping to raise Mr Latham's concerns about the policy and procedures for child abuse within the Jehovah's Witnesses with elders from their congregation, in the hope that we can take this forward together. In the hope they can take it forward together. I will write again to report progress on this, but it might take some time as policies for Jehovah's Witnesses originate from America, and is likely that elders will want to seek advice. Oh yes, they will. So it's very clear that whatever the elders would have said to the police would have been carefully orchestrated, carefully written out, and probably some additional correspondence might have actually been given to them. But for them to speak as personal individuals, that just isn't going to happen. So it will come from head office. But I am expecting another letter very shortly from the Safeguarding Children's Board to show exactly what their policy is regarding the reporting of child abuse, and this is one of my main complaints to my MP. Okay, we're going further on. I then received a letter on the 11th of December 2012 from the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Children and Families, and he said this regarding, he sent this through to his MP, my MP, for me to read. Thank you for your letter of the 9th of November addressed to the Home Secretary, enclosing correspondence from your constituent Mr. Mark Latham about procedures for handling child abuse allegations in the Jehovah's Witnesses organisation. I am replying as the Minister responsible for this area. So this is basically the top man in the United Kingdom. It's his job right now, while he's in office, to take responsibility for the information that I am putting to him, that we are putting to him, regarding the child abuse policy of Jehovah's Witnesses. I understand that Mr. Latham is concerned that the organisation prefers to handle allegations internally, instead of referring them to the police. I would like to set out where there is a specific legal duty to report allegations of child abuse to the authorities in this country. The enclosure in your letter seemed to be a copy of a circular from the Jehovah's Witnesses organisation in New York, which appears to be addressed to local congregations in the USA. It would not be relevant for the UK government to comment on guidelines for use in the USA. There are clear duties in this country, the UK, in relation to staff or volunteers who work closely and regularly with children. Any organisation, including a church, that removes a paid or unpaid worker from such work, or excuse me, or would have if the worker had not left first due to harm or a risk of harm to a child, has a legal duty to refer that person to the Disclosure and Barring Service, the DBS. More information is at the website, and I'm going to link that onto this so people can see it. It is an offence if an organisation fails without good reason to refer in such a case. It is an offence if an organisation fails without good reason to refer in such a case. If they're creating harm to a child in a church, it's an offence not to report it to the DBS. And who are the DBS? They are the authorities. The legal arm of that, the prosecuting arm of that, is the police. It is also an offence if an organisation knowingly uses a barred person for such work. Interesting. It is also an offence if an organisation knowingly uses a barred person for such work. If Mr. Latham suspects that any of the above offences may have been committed, he should report this to the police. If he also suspects abuse or neglect of any individual child which he believes has not been reported, he should contact his local authority, social services department, or the police. And this is, as I said, from the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Children and Families. Also, I've received there's a forwarding note here asking me where do we go from here. This is my local MP. So I'm going to be needing to write back, because obviously the Secretary of State here is making it clear that he thinks it's an American policy, and therefore that's the information he's got in front of him. What that American policy is something that, if we read through the document he's talking about, is one that many of us have read now. It's from the October the 1st 2012 letter to all elders, because it's addressed to America, New York. Well, what it refers to in here is the Shepherding Book, and the Shepherding Book is universal. It's used across the world. So what I need to get through to our Secretary of State is that although this letter is in New York, it is something that they would template across the country, in this country too. And more importantly, it refers in here to the Shepherding Book. Now, the Shepherding Book is very interesting because it does refer to many different things in here, calling for on child abuse. It doesn't say, also if you look at paragraph 19 on chapter 12, it talks there, never suggest to anyone that they should not report an allegation of child abuse to the police or authorities. It's not demanding that they do. Can you see the point? What this policy should be saying from this Shepherding Book is that they should be reporting it to the police. But it doesn't say that. They're saying don't suggest anything, leave it up to them. That's not right. Not with what I've just read, making it very clear that it is an offence. So, going back to this letter, it's very clear that I believe that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society in the United Kingdom is breaking the law. It does not follow through with the DBS, the Disclosure and Barring Service. They don't use it. It's very clear they don't use it. The shepherding book that we're talking about here, the instructions in here are extremely clear on what they should do. Go to branch office. Do they go to the DBS? No. Is anything referred to the DBS? No. Is it an offence if an organisation knowingly uses a barred person for such work? It is an offence, it says here. Interesting. I have a letter here in the UK which I'm going to send to him that says this, and I quote in part, it's a long letter. There is one exception to the above direction. The elders may have written to the branch office and given full details about a former child abuser who is currently serving as an elder or a ministerial servant. In such a case, if the branch office has decided that he can be appointed or continue serving in a position of trust because the sin occurred many years ago and because he has lived an exemplary life since then, his name should not appear on the list. This is their own list, by the way. Nor is it necessary to pass on information about the brother's past sin if he moves to another congregation. Unless contrary instructions have been given by the branch. If therefore such an appointed man moves to another congregation, a letter confirming the move should be sent addressed to the Society's legal department. In other words, they're making it very clear also that he can stay, he can remain as an appointed man working with children. But according to this, the DBS, the Disclosure and Barring Service, it is also an offence if an organisation knowingly uses a barred person for such work. Well, the interesting bit here is they're not barred because they're not on the list. Can you see my point? They would argue that he's not barred from the DBS because he's not on the DBS list. And the reason he's not on the DBS list is because they haven't informed the authorities of the offence. And so we're getting to the true crux of the matter here. The rest of the country in different faiths and denominations use trained people. Individuals that are then responsible, once they've been trained, to report to the authorities. That doesn't happen in local kingdom halls. That does not happen. Secondly, when an offence happens, it goes straight to the DBS, and they will then start to work out whether or not there is a jurisdictional issue here, and whether or not they should then be making sure that this individual is put through the proper processes of the prosecutions, and also that they're protecting the children. That doesn't happen in the Watchtower. So what we have here is very clearly a breach. And it's only because I've now received this letter from the Under Secretary regarding, even with regards to the fact that I can clear this up with the American side of it, it shows very clearly that the Disclosure and Barring Service should be used. That is legal statute. That is not, please, could you just kindly do it, as a good gesture. No, it's law. And they are not doing this. It is not in the Shepherd Book, it is not in their written notifications, it is not in their express policies, and yet the law says that's exactly what they should be doing. This, in my book, is clear. We've made some ground here. I can now go back to the police, I can now go back to the social services, and I will be going back to Parliament to show very clearly that they are not using the DBS, that they are using appointed men who've got sexual offences, maybe from the past. The spiritual side of it is another matter, about whether or not someone's forgiven. I understand all of that. I really do. But when it comes to the law on child abuse and who should be in a position to be working with them or not working with them, that's another matter. And that's why the law is there, and it's being breached very clearly by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. I think I'll leave it there for now, but I just wanted to share that update with you because it's very clear there is a lot more that needs to be done. I will make it clear and put the links on the website on this posting so people can actually take this forward themselves. What I would also ask from everybody out there is that it would be far more beneficial if I had a number of individuals now, wherever you are in the country, please, with the information I put up on this posting, write to the Undersecretary, write to the social services, and I'll put the addresses on. It's very important that this happens. Make it happen. Write to them. If you know of any offences and you want to, and you're willing to come forward, please do. What we do want to do is get the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society to change its policies. The policy itself is in clear breach of the law in this country. In clear breach. They are not following through with that, and the instructions they're giving to the elders do not comply with the law. They comply with legalisms and protecting its backside. That's all they're interested in. There is a lot more I could have talked about, including the two-witness rule. And this is what it all comes down to. I'll leave you with one thing. It says here, it is an offence if an organisation fails without good reason to refer in such a case. And it says it is also an offence if an organisation knowingly uses a barred person for such work. Here is my question. And it's based on these letters about sealed envelopes around the country, where only one witness, the child, was involved. How many sealed envelopes are there around the United Kingdom alone, let alone the rest of the world, where offences have taken place, or alleged offences have taken place, where the authorities and the Disclosure Barring Service are unaware of them? How many? I bet it runs into thousands of sealed envelopes in confidential files, in congregations all around the United Kingdom. I'll leave you with that question, because that is what we want to get at. That is what I want to be sharing with Parliament. I want them to look at that and start to study how much information is hidden away in files of alleged molestation and rapes from years gone back, with individuals that are, many of them, not all, it's not a witch hunt on elders and ministerial servants, but are in privileged positions in organisations right now. It needs to be stopped. They need to change their policy. It doesn't work, and we need to make it happen. Those are the updates so far. This is running in line. This information, I'm sure, has been trickled back through 3 parliamentary inquiries that are going on right now regarding a TV presenter that we had in this country called Jimmy Savile. It turns out he's one of the most prolific, if not the most prolific, sexual predator that has existed in this country, working in a position of privilege. And so the establishment knew a lot of these things were going on, and yet he managed to get away with it for decades. Now, there are 3 inquiries going on, as I know, and they are looking to retrieve as much information as possible. Now, all of this kicked off after I had already written these letters, so this is just timely that we can get this out. That's why it's so vital. If you could, please, everybody, spend a few minutes writing to the individuals that I put on here, explaining what I've already explained. And if you have more information, get it out there. Show them that the two-witness rule is what they're interested in, that they do not report these crimes, and they do not go through the DBS. I hope this is useful to many. If you have been an individual that has been abused, please don't be afraid, report it. There is professional help out there that will take on the case. We've been told that by the police, that if I know of any individuals and we want to take this forward, that they will actually assist and be very professional, because you're not going to get the professional help that you need from being in the Kingdom Hall. You're not going to get that professional help. They'd like to think they were professional counsellors, but they're certainly not. They're not trained. They have no idea what they're doing. They're completely out of their depth and out of their league. And also, it is now, as we can see, illegal. We all have a legal obligation to share this information with the police, so it's important that we do. If for any reason there are individuals out there that want to talk to me confidentially, then I can guarantee you it will be confidentially, and it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go any further unless you decide it does. But we're here and we're open for private emails too. Let's make this happen, let's make this change, and as I get more information I should be passing it on. But from what I can see quite clearly, they are in legal breach, and that's what I now need to pressure home and really go for a home run on this one. Thanks for your patience. I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.